In the fall, I was asked to participate with the Lutheran church here in town, Trinity Lutheran Church. They had a statewide gathering of approximately 200 junior high and high school kids from all over the state. And they wanted to set up 8 sessions or 8 sections for an afternoon where the kids would be divided into 8 groups and rotate around to 8 different speakers. And the topic was various aspects of justice. And I was asked to speak on animal justice because of my work with dog rescue. And, you know, first of all, it's quite an honor that the Lutherans felt safe to invite me to come and corrupt the minds of all their youth. But furthermore, it was a great opportunity to know that all these young people were committing a whole day towards discussion and learning about different aspects of justice. And also that they're willing to hear from different voices and not just Lutheran voices. So it was a really great afternoon, and I'm going to replay it sort of for you as to how it went, but only in part. Part of it is just for us. And I thought that the hymn we had today was incredibly applicable. In fact, I wanted to read a little bit of this to lead off. Even though it talks a lot about slavery of humans, the pain and suffering of animals, which was my topic, this hymn really struck a note. They are slaves, meaning us, who fear to speak for the fallen and the weak. They are slaves who will not choose hatred, scoffing, and abuse. Rather than in silence shrink from the truth they needs must think. In other words, being silent, pretending to believe what society wants you to believe. They are slaves who dare not be in the right with 2 or 3. And if you talk about animal justice, you often find yourself in a very small minority. So what I did in an effort to reach out to all these young people was, first thing I did was take in 3 of my own dogs. So you can pretend I brought in 3 dogs here. 2 of the 3 are pictured here. And when they first came in, I let them sit down. Often they would sit on the floor on cushions or something, or on couches. It was a very relaxed environment. And then I had my 3 dogs on leashes. I'd say, go ahead and close the door. And they're all going, oh, look at the little puppies. And I'd say, okay, now we're going to let the dogs loose and you get to play with them. And so for the first couple of minutes, I just let the dogs run loose and they were all petting the dogs. It was very interesting. They had a group of immigrants recently arrived from Africa, and they did not have pets. And these young, they're mostly younger, at junior high age. They did not know what to make of these little creatures. They were afraid, very shocked that these animals were running around. By the end of the 20 minutes, because we had about 20 minutes with each group, they were brave enough to reach out and touch the dogs and stuff. But you know, some of the things we take for granted, it's amazing when people from other cultures come in. They've never had a pet dog. They've never petted a dog before, and it's just a shocking thing to them. So after we did that, I had 2 topics to talk about, and I would lead off with this. And you can play too. What if you're going to get yourself a dog? What is the one place you don't want to go to get a pet dog? So if anyone's got an idea, and there's multiple answers I usually get. Where?
Pet store.
Pet store? Anywhere else?
My son.
Walmart parking lot.
Yeah,
What?
Walmart parking
Walmart parking lot? That one came up?
The pound, because I want to save them all.
Any others?
Puppy mills.
Puppy mills? Okay. Good answers. The answer that I was looking for, although you can certainly make arguments for other ones, are pet stores, of all things. And most of the kids were rather surprised when I said, don't ever get a dog at a pet store. Well, why not? Well, you have to ask yourself, where do these dogs come from that end up in a pet store? And they usually come from places we call puppy mills. So this is a photo of a puppy mill. This is not an exaggeration. I've been to puppy mills. I've seen this sort of thing. If you can't see the picture clear enough, let me describe what's going on. You have multiple small dogs in a setup where they are standing on wire mesh. And then that overhang right here, that's where all the feces and the urine drop. So if they have to pee or poop, they go out into this area and do that, and then it's just filthy underneath. And then on the back, there's usually a little door that goes into an inside section. It's never climate controlled, so it's super hot in the summer and cold in the winter. And it is not an exaggeration to say that many of these dogs have never set foot on grass. And if they do, it's for only the briefest of moments. This is where they live. They are breeding machines to produce puppies for the sole purpose of making money. The people who do this view this as a commodity, no different than farming and cutting down crops or whatever to sell for food. These animals are a means to an end, to make money. And they sell these to dog brokers, who in turn sell the dogs to pet shops. To have puppies, a dog does not need to be in great health. So the mothers are usually in horrible condition. Their teeth often fall out due to loss of calcium because all the calcium goes into the puppies. They are bred far too rapidly. I mean, they can continue to produce these puppies, but no dog should have that many litters that fast. And they literally get worn out. Oftentimes when they're older and incapable of producing any more puppies, they will be given to a rescue group. So elderly dogs lacking all their teeth finally get a decent shot at life after they've been used up by their owners. This is a typical puppy mill dog. And again, I've been there, I've seen them, I've rescued some of them. The claws are usually grossly long. Their skin is in terrible shape. If it's a long-haired dog like those Pomeranians at the back of, or at the beginning of this, and I'll go back, those dogs with that long, fluffy, thick fur, when they're not taken care of, that becomes matted and solid. I rescued one Pom where I had to slowly cut all the hair off, and it wasn't hair anymore. It was a solid piece of something. And underneath were a million fleas and scabby skin where it had scabs. Many of it was festering. So this is not an exaggeration. The dogs are treated very badly. And the reason to not buy a dog from a pet shop is this. Because the dogs who produce those puppies are living horrible, torturous lives. Now there are pet stores where you'll go in and you'll see some animals, but they're not being sold. They're there being placed by a local rescue group or animal shelter. So if you go down to PetSmart, for instance, here in Tullahoma, and you see some animals in there, they are not coming from puppy mills. They are coming from local rescue groups. Many pet stores have stopped selling dogs and cats for this very reason. But there are still exceptions. Oftentimes they're independent or smaller chains. The big chains have realized this is just a losing proposition. The publicity's out there, they get picketed, and they said it's just not worth it trying to do this anymore. The bad publicity is too much. So bad publicity can make people change the way they act. So if you are going to get a dog, and if you can be strong, unlike Jim, who's going to bring them all home, animal shelters definitely are a good source. Usually, if they're any good, the dogs are up to date on their vaccinations. Not always, it just depends, so you have to ask. I know if you get a dog from Animal Harbor, where I volunteer in Franklin County, those dogs are fully up to date on their vaccinations. They've been receiving heartworm treatment. You know they've been tested. You know they're healthy. And even at that, the adoption fee ranges from somewhere from $40 to $100, and people go, oh, that's too much. No, it's not. You pay that for a vet visit. You pay more than that for a vet visit. So that is a bargain. Even if you were to pick up a dog on the street or a dog from someone at Walmart, that is a better option than getting one from a pet store. Because the dogs in the pet stores come from puppy mills, period. End of discussion. The dogs at Walmart at least haven't been through that. You know, people might be irresponsible, not getting their dogs spayed or neutered, having puppies they shouldn't be having, but at least they're not torturing their animals, and at least they're doing something to try to find a home for them. So that's the first answer. And then as I talk to the kids there in the group, I say, now we're talking about justice. The theme of today is justice. Animals deserve justice too. Whether you're coming at this from a Christian perspective, as many of you are, or if you're coming at it from a merely human perspective, there is no good reason to torture animals, to make them live those horrible lives. So by you not allowing your parents, or by you not getting a dog from a pet store, and by you sharing this message with other people, you shut down the demand. And the people who run these puppy mills are not doing it because they're sadists. They're doing it to make money. And if the money's not there, they're going to do something else. So you shut off the flow of money, you shut off the pain. And we can do that by each of one of us making that step not to support them. And furthermore, sharing that message with everyone else. So at this point, we've talked about dogs, and I pick up one of my dogs and I say, well, if you'll excuse me for a second, I'm going to take little Ted here over into the next room, and we're going to have him butchered, and then we're going to get the meat out, and then we're going to feed you some dog. And they all act, oh, what are you talking about? I say, well, why shouldn't we butcher Ted? And you get a wide variety of answers. You know, they're pets, they're so cute. Well, it's an animal. You eat animals, don't you? Is there anyone here who doesn't eat animals? And one or two hands might go up, but mostly they all eat animals. So why is it okay to kill a cow or a pig, but not Ted? And then they stop and they look thoughtful. And I say, one aspect of animal justice is also how we treat the animals who are your food, not just the animals who are your pets. I said, did you know, for instance, if you like pork, if you like ham or bacon or pork chops, you're eating an animal that is probably smarter than your dog. Pigs are extremely smart animals. They're also very social animals. They love to be around other pigs. Mama pigs love to be around their little piglets. You know, they actually care. And yet, a pig, being smarter than a dog, is a source of food for many of us in this country, and dogs aren't. Why do we treat pigs that way? But even if a pig is treated wonderfully, that's a rare exception, because many pigs are put through horrible, horrible conditions before they become your bacon. For instance, I'm going to show you a picture of what they do to pigs who are pregnant. And I'm going to read a passage for you from a website called Farm Sanctuary to describe this picture and the next picture. This is a gestation crate. This is where the majority of female pigs who are pregnant, they call them breeding sows, spend most of their entire pregnancy. They are confined to a gestation crate. It's slightly larger than the body, as you can see. They cannot lie down comfortably or even turn around. And you can see that if you look at the picture. Imagine if you had been placed in a cage like this, where you could not even turn around. The floors are usually made of slats, which will allow the manure to fall through, so that these sows live directly above their own waist. It causes high levels of ammonia in the air, so they often have problems with their lungs because they're breathing the essentially poisonous gas. Because they stand on these hard, unnatural floors, it takes a toll on their feet. It causes foot injuries, damage to joints, and some are even lame from this. The intense boredom and frustration that the pigs suffer in gestation crates have been blamed by researchers for abnormal neurotic behaviors that confined pigs sometimes exhibit. They will repetitively bite at the bars. They'll chew when there's nothing in their mouth and just keep chewing over and over. These behaviors can lead to additional suffering by causing sores and mouth damage. Once the piglets are about to be born, they're moved. Now they're in something called a farrowing crate, where the piglets will be nursed. The crates are meant to separate the mother from the piglets so that the mothers won't accidentally roll on any of them or sit on any of them and kill them, because if that were to happen, you lose money. At 17 to 20 days of age, these little piglets are taken away from their mothers, and they undergo a series of mutilations, including being castrated, having a portion of their tails removed without any pain relief. They spend the next 6 months of their lives confined to pens until they reach market weight, and then they are trucked to slaughter. So, there's no nice way to say this. When you eat ham, pork chops, bacon, this is how it's produced in the factories. If you get that stuff in the grocery stores, it doesn't magically appear. It comes from factory farms. And factory farms are designed to be as efficient as possible, to produce as much meat as possible, to make as much money as possible. But that food comes from the pain and suffering of animals that are as smart or not smarter as these little dogs in the room. Now, I know most of you don't control what you eat at home. And again, I'm talking to these kids. But you could talk to your parents and say, you know, maybe we're not going to become vegetarians or anything, but maybe we could stop eating pork. Or maybe we could eat less. Maybe we could take a day or 2 or 3 each week where we don't eat meat. Maybe we could find our meat from something other than a grocery store where the pigs aren't tortured before they're butchered. There's all sorts of things we can do to help fight against this suffering. Because just like the puppies, if you don't buy them from the pet stores, the need for them dries up, and the people who the people who run puppy mills will do something else to make money. If the demand for pork dries up, these pigs won't be tortured anymore. And it really is about the suffering of animals and what kind of justice we have in this country for these animals. It was only a couple years ago that a bill went through the New Jersey House to ban this sort of thing. And Governor Chris Christie vetoed it because follow the money. What kind of a soul does a person have to say, we don't want to stop this? That I have the right to sign into law banning these gestation crates, but I'm not going to do it. That's mind-boggling. I shared a quote last month from Sam Harris about moral progress. We will embarrass our descendants just as our ancestors embarrass us. And again, this does not mean everyone embarrasses us from the past. It's a general statement about the things that a society accepts as normal that today we look back and go, how could you possibly have accepted that? And our descendants are going to look back at us and say, how could you have ever thought this was okay? What in the world made you think these animals didn't suffer, or that their suffering didn't matter? Hopefully our descendants will be embarrassed by this, because this is moral progress. And people are fighting right now for this kind of moral progress throughout this country. There's another quote at the end of the website that I've been using. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And we often choose not to pay attention. And I'm as guilty of this as anyone. I assure you that when we sit down to eat, potluck or any time, I don't look around and judge anyone else. I have enough problems of my own with what I eat. I make no moral judgment on anyone, and I don't want people to think I am. But I wanted to share this, because this is what's going on in our world right now. And as we sang in our hymn, if we're not willing to be aware of the shackles and the pain of others, then we're really pretty empty and vain. And that we need to understand what's going on. When we eat, let's be mindful of how the food got there. Let's be mindful of whether there was suffering or not involved. And let's be mindful of ways we can change things. And if you can't, just say, well, I can't change the way I eat. Make little changes. Little changes in what you eat and where you get it. If you can make big changes, great. But one of the best things you can do is work towards it if you feel that there is a need to change what it is you're doing. Don't just jump in cold turkey with both feet. That often blows up in your face. It's a hard transition to make. But there are many different ways we can avoid supporting the people who do this sort of thing. And to close, this is some artwork that's designed to make you really think hard. This artist, Paweł Kuczynski, paints a lot of pictures that try to get you to think about the ethics of how you are living your life. And if you can't see the picture really well, or if you're listening to this, you've got a butcher essentially with a knife petting a cat with a little towel tied around its chest, a bib, if you will. And then on the other side are a bunch of animals looking at this guy, wondering, probably, why is he giving this cat this great deal, and we're all over here as nothing but a source of food? Why do we treat some animals differently than others, and why don't we have animal justice in our minds as well as we do for human justice? And again, some of you may, most of you may, I don't know. I don't know what your individual lives are like. But as you go home, I urge you to be mindful that we not become blind. We should not be blind to the injustices and sufferings that are around us. By not being blind, by being mindful, then we can make moral progress. So I would encourage all of us to think long and hard and be mindful and strive in our lives to alleviate suffering. Thank you very much.